Welcome to today's episode with me, Johnny Pardo. Today, I welcome Tommy to the show, where we're going to be talking about energy, health, confidence, mental health, and much, much more. So, just a quick introduction to Tommy, then we'll dive into his story today in this conversation. Always a big fan to talk about health, whether it's physical health, mental health. I believe have a strong connection between the both of them. So really looking forward to this conversation with Tommy today. So Tommy helps men overcome the skin, digestive and libido issues that weigh them down, drain their energy and zap their confidence. So Tommy, welcome to the show today. Thanks for making the time. First of all, it'd be great to hear a little bit about maybe a little bit about your story, what got you into this area, because when I spoke to someone usually around the topic of health, sometimes it's like they've been through their own journey of challenges they've overcome. Sometimes it's someone close to them. I know we've got a mutual friend in Glenn who's been on the show as well. And yeah, we had a great conversation then. But then sometimes it might just be your own curiosity into like health and improving it for yourself. So yeah, first of all, really great to understand a little bit about what's got you so passionate in this area.
Well, first of all, hello everyone. My name's Tommy. I'm an integrative health practitioner. I help men overcome a number of different health challenges. And I got into that mainly because of my own health challenges that I suffered with in my life as well. And first of all, I'm really excited to be on your podcast. And I'm delighted to say also that I've created something for the men listening, something that was pivotal to me in my journey to better health, which I can share with them at the end as well. But it all started for me at a very young age, suffered with a lot of health issues. I had a birth defect. I had 3 operations by the time I was 8, 2 on the birth defect, 1 on having my tonsils out. And I was just a very, very sick kid. I was always getting infections, always on antibiotics, always on medication. And to add to that, home life was a bit crazy. My mum had schizophrenia. It drove all my family away. My dad left first, then my sister, then my brother, and it was just me and my mum left. And her schizophrenia got really bad. And by the age of 9, I would be up in my bedroom listening to her downstairs, throwing stuff, talking to herself. I ended up leaving home. I just opened the door, ran out of the door, went to my brother's, and in the end, went to live with my dad. And I moved in with my dad. And by the age of 10, 11, 12, I started developing insomnia, really bad psoriasis on my scalp. I was fainting a lot of the time in school, and the health issues just got worse and worse and worse. So when I got to about 15, 16, left school, found drink and drugs, done so much of that, and the health issues just got worse and worse and worse. By the time I was 21, I'd had all different jobs. I couldn't even hold a job down because I couldn't get a proper night's sleep. Had so many health issues, which made it hard for me to hold a job down. And as a result of that, I just end up depressed, doing nothing for a long time. But after a while, I decided I wanted to become a personal trainer. So I managed to get into that and was doing that for a few years, but still really struggling with my health. And, in that sort of the way I was taught was everything's all about calories. It's only about calories, and it wasn't so much about health. And I had to really find my way in bettering my health in a way that wasn't so much about calories. And I was having to show up with my clients not looking like a picture of health myself, and it was really getting me down. And I'd look in the mirror each day and get upset with what I was seeing. My psoriasis had turned into eczema, which was all over my face. And I had to spend many years I say learning of some of the best doctors, reading books, taking courses, and, really, really on a journey, trying to find what worked for me. And it took me many years, which I'm really happy to say now I've overcome so many issues, but this is how I've got to where I am now, helping other men overcome some of the same issues that I suffered with.
Oh wow! Well, thanks for sharing, Tommy, and obviously doing some great work now because I know there's a lot of people with various health issues out there, and particularly you mentioned about eczema, which sounded like a bit of a challenge, and that can impact us. Like I've had people who've shared it's like impacted their like confidence and how they felt about themselves and the world a lot more. And they're like, how do I solve this? So it's great we've got people like you in the world, helping them, give them maybe some steps a little bit quicker than trying to figure it out. So no, that's amazing.
Well, the thing is, Johnny, so many people nowadays are suffering with things, right? Whether it's eczema, whether it's low mood and depression, fatigue and energy struggles, frequent illnesses, brain fog, all these different issues, digestive
Yeah.
issues. And, while it's common, it isn't normal, right? And I want to sort of explain to people listening something called the rain barrel effect that was taught to me by my mentor.
Yeah.
And, if you imagine a rain barrel, it's filling up, right? It's filling up with our everyday stressors, our poor diet, our worries that we've got, our environmental toxin exposures, whether it's mold, whether it's bacteria. There's all these different things filling up this rain barrel, right? And when it gets to the point where it starts to overflow, we feel that as symptoms. Now, in some people, it might be eczema and psoriasis. In someone else, it might be depression. In someone with really poor genes, it might be loads of different things like I had to deal with. But then what we end up doing is we medicate those symptoms. We go to the doctors and each individual symptom gets compartmentalized and they medicate each individual symptom. And we sort of feel like we're better, right? But as soon as we stop that medication, because we haven't done nothing for the real cause of it, as soon as we stop that medication, the symptoms come on more, or we don't. We stay on that medication. The cause goes unaddressed, continues to fester, continues to proliferate. And then further down the line, the next issue pops up as well. So, that rain barrel effect, it's, years of things building up, right? So the symptoms we feel today aren't necessarily something that happened overnight. It could have been brewing over time. So it's more a case of addressing the causes so the symptoms are no longer.
And how did you get to like some of these causes? Was it just you said you did a lot of research yourself with like what these doctors had done, but was it like maybe a little bit of deep inner work you had to do or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, there was so many different things, I mean, for me, it all started with books and it all started with diet for me, right? And I'd say I got about 5% better by doing a lot of dietary changes. But for me, 5% was absolutely huge, right? And then I found the next piece, which was, sleep. My sleep had been ruined for years. I started working on that. That was another, percentage better, 5% better. Then I worked on the next part and the next part. And, I've worked on all these different pieces. And that's the thing that I say to people, it's never just one diet. It's never just one exercise. It's a real holistic approach. That's why we call it integrated health.
Yeah, integrated health. I like that. That's obviously a good term. You're integrated health specialist, you said.
That's right. And how I can also help men and how I do help men is we can even use functional medicine lab testing. And this takes the guesswork out of what the person needs, because that's the thing. No five people with the same, whether it's depression, whether it's low libido, no five people necessarily have the same causes. The causes can all vary. So using lab testing, some very simple at-home tests, whether it's saliva to look at hormones, whether it's stool tests to look at gut function, these can all paint a picture of what's going on and help us create a personalized plan for the person.
For you, was there, and again, like I like what you said about it being like personalized, because I know when even I just came into personal growth and trying to work on my confidence and all these kind of things, it was like, right, what's the one size fits all approach, right? And then I had a lot of lessons to learn about that over the years, and I learned that it's kind of like a personalized approach. I like what you're saying there. And it's, for you, is there any, sounds like diet made a big difference, like that 5% difference, like you said. Was there any kind of like mindfulness stuff that you found particularly useful, like in your journey?
100%, 100%. Yeah. I think growing up there was a lot of trauma. I know we've all had our trauma,
Mm,
but it's really how we deal with that. And I feel like a lot of what went on at home when I was younger affected my insomnia and the sleep.
mm,
And even, when I got older, 15, 16, I was even selling weed, right? I
mm,
was getting into fights. I was getting people getting jumped, people trying to take things from me and things like that. So there was a lot of complex trauma as well. So the mindfulness was a huge piece, and that's mindfulness is definitely a big piece of anyone's program, especially if they've dealt with any trauma as well.
mm, mm. And is the trauma that you went through, is it something you felt like you've worked through now, or is it something you still like tap
I,
into now and then?
Yeah, I'm 100% still working on it. There's definitely still things that come up for me. So yeah, I'm not perfect. I'm far from perfect. There's still things that I can work on, but yeah, it's definitely a huge piece of it. Yeah.
Mm. And you mentioned obviously you had like your mentor. I know you're obviously working with someone at the moment. How's that helped you or me in your journey as well? Because you read all these books, so I just wondered the impact of having a mentor as well for you.
Yeah, I've learned so much of so many different people and continue to as well. I've had a lot of different mentors. I mean, even if it's just someone's book that I'm reading over and over,
Mm,
they're like a mentor to me. It's absolutely been huge for me. Really has. Yeah, I think having mentors for anyone is really an important thing.
mm, I love that. And so with your when you're a personal trainer, was that I mean, is that something you still do a little bit at the moment?
I do. Yeah, I still do a
Mix it
little
all
bit of
bit?
personal training. Yeah, yeah, I do. I do some personal training and some health coaching as well. And in a lot of cases, I'll be helping someone with personal training, and that's one piece of it. That's the exercise piece. But then also, it turns out that they need to work on some of the other pieces. And we call it the de-stress protocol, which is like an acronym. It's diet, exercise, stress reduction, toxin removal, rest and sleep, emotional balance, scientifically proven supplementation, and a success mindset. It's never just one piece, it's all of those pieces.
Mm. I'm curious to you as well, Tommy. Like, um, like again, like, it's very sort of like the classic sort of personal growth space, and it's there's some people who have habits that might like support you, and maybe some, and we have some habits that may not be as supportive. And sounds like you were just trying to piece all these bits together. Have you been someone who's like surrounded yourself in groups where possible? Have you tried to of the right people? Have you kind of just been like learning and then speaking to mentors as well?
Yeah, I think a lot of it on my journey was on my own for quite a
Mm,
while. And when I was pretty in a pretty bad way, I was in a lot of the time and I was just studying and reading books and just really, really trying to work on myself, internally and externally and work things out. And, for anyone dealing with chronic illness, you know that you have a lot of thinking time. And, yeah, I was really trying to put the pieces into place. So yeah, it wasn't so much groups. Yeah, my mentors were more sort of one to one, and yeah, I mean, when you're suffering, when you're pretty desperate, you'll do anything.
mm. No, no, that's great. You sort of like move forward with people. I'm always like curious because some people like surround themselves with groups, some people one on one, some books, sometimes a mixture. So no, that's really cool to hear how kind of your journey went on that. For the individual who might be, because health can be a little bit like I've studied some sort of like brain health with like Dr. Amen, and there's all sorts of things there, and done like vegan like study from like the vegan fitness guys and all these kind of things. But sometimes for me, certainly, it's been like a little bit overwhelming. There's like so many like health theories out there. There's like do this, do that, and it's like where do I start? So if you were to give guidance to someone who's like, well, I've got like this health issue, or maybe it's a few, depending on what it is, and they're like feeling a little bit overwhelmed from it all, what would you suggest to them?
Yeah, I mean, it is a very, it is very tough. It's hard to navigate because, like you say, there's so much different advice out there, and
Mm,
it's getting more and more and more. It's coming from all different angles. And I hear from people all the time, they say, yeah, but there's so much contradictory advice out there. And I think the thing is, it's meant to be contradictory because it's not a
mm,
one size fits all approach for everyone. So yeah, it's very tough. And on my, at the start of my health journey, I just made gradual changes. There wasn't too much too soon, and I didn't intentionally do it like that either. But yeah, it's got to be small, slow and steady. There's a saying I love: "Slow is smooth, and smooth is fast." You can't rush these things, and when you've been dealing with issues for a long time, these things didn't happen overnight. You can't expect to change them overnight as well. But yeah, I mean, what I would say to someone is, yeah, just try and make gradual steps, baby steps, and keep taking them.
mm, along the way. No, no, I love that. Because yeah, it can be a little bit overwhelming. Even not just health, right? It can be all these things we want to like improve a certain skill set could be very overwhelming. So, like your approach on that side of things, even like building a business, like that we're doing as well. So, yeah, makes a lot of sense.
100%. Yeah, you just hear so many different things out there. It can be really hard. Yeah, definitely.
No, I love that, Tommy. Tommy, before we sort of like wrap up today, I just wanted to ask you, is there maybe a final point that you'd like to leave us with, or maybe a re-emphasis to someone who's really struggling on their health journey that you'd like to cover again? And then also, if the listener wants to find out more about your work, get in touch, see all these great things you're doing. I know you've got something you are going to mention as well. That you are going to offer, where can they find you?
Well, guys, I've made a completely free guide for men that want to show up as the best possible version of themselves and really optimize their health. I've created that specifically for men. So if people want to reach out to me on Instagram, Tommy Berrabe, or on Facebook, Tommy Berrabe, I can give them a copy of the guide there. Um,
Awesome.
and for anyone, who's a bit overwhelmed with everything, that doesn't really know where to start, all I can say really is just start small, whether it's drinking a bit more water or, trying to focus on the sleep routine a little bit, things like low libido, digestive issues, depression, anxiety, sleep is often one of the big pieces to that.
Mm,
So, not to say you got to go to bed earlier, but there's a lot of different things you can do to try and improve your sleep routine. You know, food wise, eating an extra cup of vegetables per day, drinking an extra glass of water per day, going for a walk. All things you've probably, people listening to this have probably heard before, but starting small, baby steps, and keep taking them.
love that. I think it's the sometimes I find it sometimes the most simple things than the overcomplicating them is effective. So yeah, like that you touched on the sleep, on just eating more vegetables and the water as well, of course.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, what happens in the gut affects the brain. What
Mm,
happens in the brain can affect the gut. It really is a two-way street. It's called
mm,
gut-brain axis. So yeah, massively. I see so many people. They're dealing with mental health issues, and they're never really making the connection between what's going in and how they're feeling.
mm.
So it is absolutely huge.
Very important one, yeah. That's a really good point. I think sort of like end on as well for me. Certainly, I found that it's like I'm anxious, and then I've noted what I've eaten, or it's like I'm eating really fresh. I try and eat fresh as much as possible, but it's like no angel, but it's like when you're eating like fresh food and drinking more water, it's like feeling a lot more calm today, and it's quite an interesting, yeah. Well, it's not. It's interesting, but it's not interesting because it makes sense. So yeah.
I think it's just also, there's the world we're living in now is so like perfectly crafted, perfectly situated to keep us, you know, going for all the things that are easy and convenient and the food and the takeaways and, not taking the stairs and just everything that's easy is actually harming us in the long run. So again, this is how I help people in my one-to-one coaching programs, is giving them the dedicated support, because I think that's what so many people are missing as well.
Amazing. No, thank you, Tommy, for coming on today and all the work you're doing to help people once again.
No, thank you very much for having me on. Really appreciate it.
Of course. So that concludes our episode for today. Remember to lead with your heart and not with fear.